house and parenting, he's footballing, he's traveling. We were in the same place at the same time over in Ireland last month, but he's been to 20 NFL camps, which is 19 more than I've been to, and he actually pays attention to the preseason. From the MMQB, we welcome our defending champion, and I know it's football season because he's writing about the Pittsburgh Steelers. The one and only Peter King joins us live via satellite. What's going on, Peter? Why are you writing about the Steelers this week instead of the Ravens?
That's a good question. I think it's because I have determined that every year before I die, every summer, I will go to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, because it's my favorite training camp site in the United States.
I know this about you, and
I love it.
You know, Tomlin has invited me up there to swab his players, and they do that with the black and gold game or that Friday night game that they do early. And I'm going to get there one of these years, but you know, they're better than we are right now, and I think that's pretty obvious. And I think when you look at this preseason and all the things that have gone wrong, we're scratching our heads here in Baltimore right now, wondering how many games is Joe Flacco really going to play this year.
Good question. I mean, if I were the Ravens, I'd be thinking 16 right now.
Okay.
But, you know, you just don't know. As Parcells used to say, they don't sell insurance for that kind of stuff. And again, I don't know because I haven't been there, but I'm sure that John Harbaugh, Ozzie Newsome are thinking that they're going to get a full season out of him, and we'll see if indeed that happens.
Peter, you've been everywhere. You've seen everything. Just before I even get into individually these camps, you do this every year. I've done 30 ballparks in 30 days on the baseball side. I plan to do a hockey one. I sort of haven't gotten back to it. And as I age, it sounds less appealing to be in Winnipeg on a Tuesday night. You still have incredible vigor for this, right? And you didn't always do it this way, certainly under the bright lights, but you've got to be dog-ass tired right around now, right?
Not really. I mean, you know, I got home last Thursday night late, and I mean, here's how I look at it, Nestor. I mean, at this time of year, okay, first of all, it's the best time to spend a day at a team for a lot of reasons. If I go in to see a team during the season, maybe I'll get 20 minutes with the coach, maybe, okay? And maybe I'll get a couple of players who I really want to talk to, okay? If I go to training camp, I can watch practice, which I can't do during the season. That's number one. If I go to training camp, there's 90 players and a ton of stories to choose from when you go to these camps. And so, you know, it's and almost all of these guys, I mean, with the exception, let's say, of like Marshawn Lynch, you know, I mean, I went to the Patriots last week, and quite honestly, I could have talked to whoever I wanted to talk to, with the exception of Belichick. And so, you know, and the assistant coaches. But the way I look at this is, there's so much more access in this 1 month during the year, and plus, nobody has a losing streak yet. And so I look at it and I say, my favorite time of the football season is basically July 27 to August 27. Far, far, far and away. Because it allows you to actually see what's going on with teams. And Nestor, there's one other factor in this. Okay, so the era of the national NFL writer is dead. You know, the New York Times doesn't have, and Ken Belson covers the NFL, but I don't see him out there at training camps. The Washington Post, Mark Maskey does some, but not a lot. The LA Times, Sam Farmer used to do it, but now they got teams out there, so he doesn't do very much.
He's got two teams to cover that nobody cares about, right? Exactly.
Yeah, but they're in LA, so he's covering them. The Chicago Tribune, the Dallas Morning News, all these places, they don't have them. So I'm out there, and there's maybe me and Jarrett Bell, and who knows? I mean, maybe Tom Pelissero from NFL.com, even though I didn't see him out there. I guess he's going to be what I would call a national writer, but most of these things, that has gone by the wayside. And so therefore, if I go into a place, especially with my team at the MMQB, we're going to get, we went to Pittsburgh, we got Tomlin, we got Roethlisberger, we got James Harrison, we got Kevin Colbert, we got, I don't know, we got Antonio Brown, we got 10 people, Todd Haley, we got anybody who we wanted for a decent amount of time. So that's why training camp to me, do I get tired? But every day you wake up and you say, man, today I'm going to talk to X, Y, and Z. I'm going to watch J.J. Watt practice and rush Tom Brady in West Virginia, which I did one day when the Patriots and Texans were practicing there. I hate to be corny, and this is really, really corny. If you can't get up for that, go be a barista at Starbucks.
Peter King from the MMQB, camping and getting ready for the real thing. There's optimism everywhere, though, right? You go to Cleveland and San Francisco and these places where, the expectations outside of their bubble are kind of low. I would think even there, even in Jacksonville, they think they can win 8 or 9 games, right?
I'd say everywhere I went, with the exception I would say this, Nestor. Cleveland has a different measuring stick. It's like Hugh Jackson said, he talks to the owners and they talk about little victories. Okay, so Hugh Jackson basically understands that, they're not, as he told me, we're not going 15-1. So, he's got a different measuring stick. And the Rams, I think the Rams could be better, but if they go 8-8, they're throwing a parade. So, but every other team that I saw, I think has somewhere around legitimate hopes to be playing football in January. So, I don't know. There's an awful lot of hope in an awful lot of places, but that happens every year.
Peter, here in Baltimore, the hope and expectation has to be on the defense. That's where the buzz is here, that this defense is going to get back to being the kind of defense that the Ravens sort of carried the torch with Ray Lewis all of those years. And, and that's all well and good. We're all wondering about the offense and the offensive line and Flacco and who's going to run the ball and who's going to catch the ball and lack of synergy between Flacco and Macklin and other receivers. But defensively here, the optimism is, hey, no one's going to run on the Ravens, and they might have a hard time passing on the Ravens too.
What you hear about the Ravens, when you go around and because, I'm in the, I saw the other 3 teams and look, and sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to go to, I'm going to have a day at the Ravens. But
make sure you hurry before the Orioles are eliminated. I'm just saying, Pete. That's all. Just saying.
Well, the Sox are there in September, so you never know. I might have to sneak down there for a game.
It'll mean something to one of us.
Yeah. But here's the sort of interesting thing. You get the impression that all of the draft capital that the Ravens have spent in recent drafts on defense is starting to come home to roost. And with the exception of an injury or two, the Elam Brown debacle of a top 2 rounds, they've got some good young defensive players to form the backbone of that unit. So again, I sort of look at it and think to myself, okay, look, to me, when I think about this right now, the one thing I think about is that all you need out of your offense is to hand the ball, or is to score enough so that you're not asking the defense to win 13-10 every week. And, they should have enough confidence in Joe Flacco, especially if Perryman comes into this year and finally gives you a first-round draft pick season. That, you think that this ought to be a better team. And I think, look, it has to be a better team. Steve Bisciotti is not an impatient man, but he's got to look at the last couple of years and say, all right, come on, guys. We've given you whatever you wanted. We got to win now.
Well, part of this is also, and you and I talk baseball and football sort of fluently. The problem with the Orioles right now is the Red Sox and the Yankees are loading up. I guess the problem for the Ravens right now would be, well, the Steelers are better than us right now, but how much better are they? You've spent an inordinate amount of time in Latrobe. I'm sure at least 8 to 12 hours. So some thoughts about how much better the Steelers are and what your expectation is out of them, as well as Cincinnati, who, kind of quietly has sort of retooled things there. Now, how it turns out, but there has been a lot of turnover there after a long, long stretch of the same guys every year coming in and out of here.
Well, Cincinnati would worry me because at least they didn't want to pay Whitworth, and I totally understand that. But they've got two guys they drafted in 15, Ogbuhi and Fisher. I never pronounce Ogbuhi's name right. But he's going to play left tackle, and I'll tell you one thing: he better approximate Whitworth, because I think they really, really need help there. And I think, okay, so right now they lose Zeitler, who was obviously an excellent guard for them, and so their guard situation, especially with Andre Smith coming back and moving inside now, is going to be shaky. I have no idea how many healthy weeks Tyler Eifert will have. He's a great tight end when he's healthy, which isn't often. And I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying that, he really hasn't been able to stay healthy. The big thing about the Bengals now is you get John Ross and Joe Mixon in the lineup. If Andy Dalton has enough time, obviously Ross is going to be a weapon, opposite A.J. Green. Now, the one thing, I'd say about the Ravens when it comes to kind of their health and their wellness for the long haul. I mean, Perryman is one thing, but I also think that, they obviously are taking a shot right now, both, at the running back position, and I guess Woodhead. I see that Woodhead is kind of banged up now. I love Woodhead, but at this point in his career, what he gives you is going to be a bonus. At this point in his career, if Watson makes it, you almost have to feel what he gives you is a bonus as well. And so, you've got that, and I just feel like, especially on the defense, you're counting on some guys. I'm one of the few guys, Nestor, who really likes Brandon Carr a lot. And that is even saying that I don't think he's a great cornerback, but you know what he is? He's there every week. I mean, that is a fantastic trait to have. So, Brandon Carr, he's played more games. Since he stepped into the league, he's played more games at corner than any cornerback in football.
Wow.
And that means that you can rely on him to be healthy. I think the one thing that I would say about this team right now is I love Jimmy Smith. I really like Brandon Carr, and I like the center field of Jefferson and Weddle. I just know that because they've got age in that secondary, they really need to develop, which they're trying to do, a good backup plan for when one or more of those guys go down.
He is Peter King of the MMQB. You can follow his journey out on Twitter, and millions do. Millions. It's almost like Sagan. SI_Peter King. And, of course, the Monday Morning Quarterback coming out. Pete's been camping, been everywhere. Were you in Dublin? Were we there at the same time? Because, I didn't even have my phone on. And if you were, I know you've been there before. I really liked Dublin. Dublin was kind of cute, man.
We like Dublin, too. We just went over, and we were only there for 2.5 days. It was right. I got home, and the next night I went, I had to go training camping. But, Nestor, I really enjoyed it. We went to an IRA bar before the concert, the U2 concert, and that was sort of a what do you call the right way to put it? I guess it was kind of a bucket list thing for my wife and I. We really wanted to see U2 in Dublin. just to see what the reaction was and what it was like. And
it was crazy.
It was really nice, and it was a beautiful night. I'm never that excited when people stand for 2.5 hours because I'm 60 years old. I'd much rather sit for part of the show, but when that's the only complaint you have about a great concert, I think you're doing pretty well. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right, I'm going to step off onto the political branch here because your heart and my heart lie similarly. But the whole stick to sports thing, which is the flying middle finger of the fan to anyone that they don't agree with. Then the Kaepernick thing happens, and it becomes very, very obvious in our modern day and age and a 24-hour news cycle that's spawned by our supreme leader down in Pennsylvania Avenue that, sticking to sports, there is no sticking to sports anymore, if there ever was, if there ever should have been. That's kind of all over in the era of Colin Kaepernick now, isn't it?
Yeah, and Nestor, I think probably the thing about this whole issue about Kaepernick is that, nobody is going to feel good about Colin Kaepernick being unemployed. And there are 15 angles to the story. My biggest angle, I guess, when people say, how possibly could he be unemployed? Well, because I think when he goes to a team, the team fears, and I would be shocked. I've not talked to Bisciotti or anybody with the Ravens about this because I haven't been there, but there's absolutely no way that there wouldn't be some collateral damage. And I would think, I shouldn't say there's absolutely no way, but there will be some collateral damage, whether it's just going to be some angry fans, or whether they actually lose business over it. There's no question that some teams believe that they will lose business in the sponsorship area, and could lose either luxury box business or ticket holders. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because it has not happened. But to me, I think that is the biggest fear. I think people could, especially now, you've got so many of these little wildcat protests happening. Justin Britt and Chris Long and so many Malcolm Jenkins,
Bennett,
and and so many guys right now basically saying that we are going to risk the Bennett brothers. So many guys now thinking that we are going to risk whatever this would do to our personal bottom line, and whether we're if we were free agents, team X, Y, and Z wouldn't sign us because we protested the anthem. We're going to see what kind of long-term impact it has. But to me, I've maintained this all along. Colin Kaepernick did this all last year in San Francisco. And I don't know what happened in San Francisco, but I don't remember reading about people who had boxes at 49er games saying, I'm canceling my box because Kaepernick, didn't stand at attention for the anthem.
Pete, last thing for you, not off of politics, but on to international policy. The Ravens are playing over in Wembley for the first time in September. We're going over. Got a big group. The big march we did in New Orleans, we're going to do a Emirates cable car purple sky lift across the Thames to the O2. I know you've spent some considerable time in London as well. Ravens fans going to London, what to expect? I think it's going to be a wonderful weekend over there. A lot of fun for what could be a bad football game.
Well, I spent 4 days or 5 days, I guess, in England and Scotland in the spring, going on a sort of a tour of the country with some current and former NFL players, just to sort of gauge the level of interest in the country. And Nestor, I kid you not, some guy stood up in Liverpool and asked a question, and he said, this was 2 weeks before the draft, he said, question, I'm a Ravens fan. do you think there's any way that Derek Barnett is available when the Ravens pick in the first round? And I just said, well, this is next level interest in the NFL that I kind of didn't expect. And that's what that's what it is over there. You know, you will meet people at Wembley on game day, and if you engage them in a conversation, you will say, I'm surprised this guy lives in Liverpool and not Lutherville. And these people are NFL nuts.
Well, you know what, Pete? The kid that saved my wife's life over in Germany when we flew over there, he and his brother every Sunday night, which is, 7 o'clock there, 1 o'clock here, they all gather and watch football. They all have favorite teams. They all have jerseys. They all sort of kind of know the rules and stuff. I was blown away by that in Witten, Germany, right? I mean, I saw that with my own two eyes as well. It's bigger than, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, right?
I think, too, that I told a bunch of people this. I stayed after we were in Edinburgh, Scotland, the last night there, and I asked people who would stay after, and I would interview for a story I was going to do, and about 60 people stayed. And I mean, at the end of that, I just said, okay, I'm convinced. Now, I don't know if the Jacksonville Jaguars go over there, if the vast majority of the continent and Great Britain are going to become Jaguar fans, which I doubt it, but I do believe that the Jaguars will sell out their games. And for how long, who knows? I mean, they can't go 2-14 every year, but whoever goes over there, because I think it's probably going to be a team that moves. Whoever goes over there, I just feel right now that one of the things that people are really underestimating is the fact that these games are all available to be seen in Europe. And one of the reasons why it has become so popular is that the NFL has made deals with media companies over there like the BBC and like Sky Sports, and they basically allow all of their games to be seen now, depending on wherever you are in the world. You can, and you're a Ravens fan, if you live in Nairobi, you can watch every Ravens game.
I watched the Ravens play in
really
Tokyo.
Smart thing to do.
Yeah, but it was 3 o'clock in the morning. So part of the convenience here in America of your friends at NBC doing Premier League soccer, well, comes on at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, like Wimbledon did all of our lifetime, and it's available to you. But certainly we're going to see it over there. Peter, love you, man. Appreciate you. Rest up. We got more fake football to watch here over the next 2 weeks, but I hope our paths cross somewhere along the line, because that'll mean the Ravens are doing well.
That sounds good, Nestor. Thanks a lot.
Be well, Peter King, our all-time favorite, as you know, SI_Peter King. You can follow him, millions do, out at the MMQB, as well as his beautiful dog, Bailey, who all things are tribute to Bailey right now out on Pete's Twitter. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Sorry, I just clicked on Peter's dog and he came up giant on my screen and I had to look at him. So there you go. Long live Bailey. I agree. I am Nestor. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are, we are. WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.